Yeah, and over here, like when the old death metal thing was just getting started, before like people knew what it was much, it was very much frowned upon in the Bay Area. It was not cool. It was not cool at all, you know. So we're definitely oh man, yeah, I got a good story about that show.
Yeah. I know I'm sort of stepping forward and going back, and we're talking about death, but I think it's really important to set the table here as far as the Bay Area scene and Ruthie's and venues like that. Tell us, Chris, like what was I know this is like 1985, this flyer, but
Yeah.
what was the temperament of the Bay Area? Like, I don't want to. Should I say thrash scene or like scene back then?
I think back then people weren't so hung up on like genres and labels and all that. That came later. It was just like people, you know, call it like just punk or metal or speed metal or whatever. It was kind of like a trial by fire time where mingling like punk and metal bands on the same bill. I mean, it was not smooth sailing at first at all. There was a lot of kind of clashing attitudes and stuff like that. I mean, not for me. It was never like that for me because I discovered like metal and like underground metal and punk around the same time, you know, like getting like Dead Kennedys and Black Flag singles and, you know, stuff like that. That was around the same time as discovering like, you know, Venom and Slayer for me. So I was like, I had feet on both sides, you know, I was stoked, but not everybody was, you know. So a lot of those shows where there was like punk and metal bands, at the same time, there was a lot of not like fist fights and stuff, but like friction and a lot of looking down upon other people if they weren't into the same type of music as you. And I mean, fucking hell, it's just music, you know. I mean, why is it a problem if you like different band than somebody else, you know?
Can I quote you
Yes.
here after doing some homework? And I quote our friend Chris Reifert here. There were plenty of mixed bills that featured both metal and punk, and the crowds pretty much hated each other, and there was clear friction. In hindsight, it was a good thing to get those folks in the same mix, and over time, the animosity lessened more and more to the point where it just didn't matter anymore, which is where we are now. Makes sense. It was definitely weird at times, though. In the early underground days, I remember seeing DRI play with Possessed, and the punks threw eggs at Possessed.
Yeah,
that's just one example. I dug both bands, so it was a drag to see that shit going on. But what could you do besides not join in with that sort of behavior? Death metal was another story. When I joined Death, I had friends who just didn't understand and thought it was a stupid thing to do. In the Bay Area, death metal was sort of a joke since it didn't fit in with the thrash bracket. We didn't sing about politics or headbanging in the pit, and the lyrics were hard to make out. I knew what we were doing was killer, and I really didn't care if we were branded outcasts or whatever. That kind of shit just fuels the fire.
Yeah, I stand by all of that.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to read such a long-winded quote, but I just thought
it's cool.
I just thought it was really poignant. Could you give us glean us any other perspective on that?
Yeah, I mean, here's a good example. That show that you showed the flyer for with the Accused. That was at Ruthie's. That was kind of like our CB's, I guess. Just like everyone's favorite little shithole, you know. It was cool, you know. They serve underage kids there, and you know, stuff like that. But we got on that show opening up for the Accused. I don't know how we got shows back then. Who talked to who to make these things happen? I have no idea. But we found ourselves opening up. I remember rolling into the show in the parking lot outside, or I don't even think there was a parking lot. You just parked out front, and the Accused was there. They had some like white van, and all they had out was their demo on vinyl. It was just like a plain white vinyl, no cover or label or anything like that. And they were really nice to us. So we came up and talked to them, and we were just like teenagers trying to be like a thrash band or whatever you call it back then. And they were super nice to us. They were cool. I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. And so they were headlining, which was weird because no one had ever heard of them. I don't know how that happened. And they drove all the way down from Washington for this little Ruthie's show, which was insane. Wow. And the middle band was Violent Coercion, and they were like a straight hardcore band. And that was, I believe, precursor to Neurosis. Wow. I think it was like, I think the guys, some people from Neurosis were in that band before Neurosis, so they were like hardcore. So what happened was we went on first. The place was packed. It was packed, and the crowd hated us. Hated us. I was glad to be in the back behind the drums because like we were getting spit at, getting like boo, you know, someone mooned us. You know, it was Violent Coercion's night, their crowd. They were not having us. They were not tolerating us. It was terrible, you know, but we soldiered on and we did a good show and all that. And then Violent Coercion went on and the place just exploded, just thrashing and all the, you know, we didn't call it moshing back then. That wasn't a term yet. It was like skanking or thrashing or whatever, slamming. People went nuts. It was like, damn, okay. And then as soon as they finished, the place emptied out. Everyone fucking left. The entire Violent Coercion crowd just bailed out of the building, leaving the Accused to play with our band watching and maybe two other people. So they drove all the way down from Washington to play for like 7 people tops. But to their credit, they could have been at fucking Madison Square Garden or some shit. They just ripped it up, killed it. You know, Blaine, the singer, was just being a maniac, fucking twirling the mic around and screaming. They had this bass player called Chewy at the time, and he had like a little like gorilla amp. Remember those little gorilla amps, like with a 10-inch speaker in it or something like that? It was mic'd up and distorted, and it sounded great. But we watched them, and they were amazing. I've been a fan ever since. Just so much respect for them for being nice to us for one thing, and just killing the show even when literally the building was empty. You know.
Let me ask you, the stories of like Metallica in San Francisco, was that part of like I hear stories of like their fans would come and turn their backs on other bands. Was that part of like the culture in San Francisco when you go see bands, like you support your band and you kind of shit on the other bands? I don't know. I'm asking, was that like part of like what like the scene did back then?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it's depending on who you talk to also, you know. I mean, sometimes things went really smoothly. Like I saw an outdoor show in '84. It was what's it called? Something at the aquatic park in Berkeley, but it was like Slayer, Exodus, Suicidal Tendencies. Blue Cheer was on the bill when they had
on.
Yeah, it was a trippy bill, but that was one where everyone got along and was cool to each other for some reason. I don't know why that was, but a lot of the time you would just catch shit for not being like that show. That's a great lineup right there.
This is killer, man. Burnt Offering, Attitude Adjustment, Boneless Ones, Death Angel,
Part-Time Christians.
Yeah, I mean, this. I mean, I don't know where. I guess Chris Contos isn't watching right now, but this is like I wouldn't be surprised if Chris Contos, you know, was there. You know.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he would have been playing an Attitude on drums.
Yeah, so you would think so. You would think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Weirdly, I have no recollection of that show whatsoever. I don't remember anything about it. It's just kind of and I wasn't partying or anything back then. It's just kind of a weird blank spot in my brain. Yeah, but it did happen. There's the flyer.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was definitely some kind of like elitism within the scene, whether it was like, I think the thrash crowd was more merciless towards the kind of like death metalers even more than the punks. It didn't make sense, you know, because I was into like anything that was fast and aggressive and, you know, loud and heavy or just anything that had energy I was into. So I didn't fall into that thing, but Yeah, the death thing was not warmly received at all. I remember being at a show, I think at the Stone on Broadway in San Francisco, just by myself, minding my own business, walking around, and behind me I hear death. I'm like, oh, someone likes our band, cool. I turn around, and it was one of the local darlings of the scene, that everyone thought was cool. And he looks at me with this look of hate. After he goes death, I turn around and he goes, garbage. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool, man. And I just walked away and enjoyed whatever show it was I was at. But it was like that. It was kind of strange. And then, a lot of people probably wouldn't believe that now.
Sure.
But yeah, it was a trip. But
no, I think in a certain way, it's a little bit like in New York. Nowadays people look back into like the crossover days. It was so awesome. Meanwhile, I sort of remember like, man, either you were into hardcore or you were into metal.
Right.
And like sometimes they didn't mix and it could get violent,
Well, let me jump in for a second.
Yeah, please. Please.
One thing to kind of tie it all back to the beginning, we talked about the Residents. I'm sure Chris, they had a label called Ralph Records.
Oh, yeah.
And one of their releases in the late 70s, I think they did a couple releases with the band Tuxedo Moon out in San Francisco. One of the guys from Tuxedo Moon, Greg, ended up in a band called the Sea Hags. I don't know if you remember the Sea Hags or not from San Francisco.
Only by name.
Yeah, they became kind of a Guns N' Roses type band in the late 80s, but mid 80s, they were kind of like a Johnny Thunders type band. But they kind of came out of that initial like kind of art thing, punk. And Kirk Hammett was a big fan of theirs. And he produced their demo with Sylvia Massey, who became Tool's producer years later. So there was some kind of cross-pollination happening too, where it was like these weird connections were made with people bouncing around the scene. But the Sea Hags were definitely out there. I had Greg on my podcast recently. We dove into some of it. But how tight were you with the guys at that point in time, like the Baylofts and the Metallica guys? Were they still kind of around back then?
Oh yeah, they were around. Weirdly, Bailoff actually asked me to join his band Piranha when Autopsy was already going, and I politely said no. But oh yeah, he was ever present at shows. He was always there at all the shows, just partying with everyone and terrorizing what they called posers.
Right.
If you had like poofy hairsprayed hair, he'd like flick a match in your hair or whatever. That
poser.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I was not part of the cool crowd, so I was largely just ignored, which was fine. I was there for the shows. I wasn't there to be part of the clique or the elite.
It's
crowd.
good. It's good. It builds character and probably really contributed to your great songwriting later on in life.
I don't know, man. I didn't want any part of the club. You know what I mean? I was like, I want to watch bands, and I'm not here to make fun of bands or talk shit or fucking ridicule a band because they're slightly different than another band. It didn't make sense, but that stuff had to happen because eventually now everyone can like everything without fear of getting beat up or a match flicked in your hair or whatever. But so it was a necessary process, and I'm glad that clubs like Ruthie's took that chance. I don't know what the logic was, but looking back, it was brilliant. It was weird and awkward, and then it wasn't awkward anymore. Now it is definitely not. Anyone can play with anyone, and it's cool now. It's great.
Yeah, 100%.